I'm 78 years old, and I learned too late what really mattered. I didn't come to this understanding through a single moment of clarity. It arrived slowly, the way night falls when you're not watching the sky. I'm saying this now because there isn't much time left to pretend otherwise. Most of the people who knew me at my beginning are gone. The house is quiet in ways I never imagined it would be. And there are things I need to say while I still can, even if the people who most needed to hear them no longer can. I'm not telling this story to be admired or forgiven. I'm telling it because I lived a long life without noticing what it was costing me, and I don't want that silence to be the last thing I leave behind. These days, my mornings are slow. I sit at the kitchen table longer than I need to. I watch the light move across the floor. I forget why I stood up sometimes. The calendar on the wall still has dates on it, but fewer of them matter. When you get to this age, time doesn't feel fast. It feels thin. Like there's less of it each day, stretched tighter, more fragile. People assume that by 78 you've figured everything out. That wisdom settles in naturally, like gray hair. That isn't how it works. Understanding doesn't come because you aged well. It comes because you outlived your excuses. I spent most of my life believing I was doing the right things. I worked hard. I showed up. I kept promises. I paid bills. I stayed busy. I told myself that was responsibility. That was love. That was enough. I didn't see what was missing, because missing things don't announce themselves. They just stop happening. When I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, life felt like a series of urgent tasks. There was always something that needed attention. A job that demanded more hours. A promotion that required sacrifice. A future that felt just out of reach, if I could only push a little harder. I wasn't careless. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't absent on purpose. I was simply focused on what I thought mattered. I married young. We were both trying to become someone. We talked about plans more than feelings. We assumed love would hold itself together if we stayed practical. When arguments came, we postponed them. When distance crept in, we called it a phase. There were evenings when my wife would sit across from me at the table, talking about her day. I nodded. I listened enough to respond. I didn't hear what she was really saying. I thought presence meant being in the same room. There were times she reached for my attention and I told myself I'd give it to her later. After this project. After this deadline. After things settled down. They never settled down. Children came into our lives, and with them a deeper sense of responsibility. I wanted to give them stability. I wanted to provide. I told myself that working longer hours was an act of love. I missed school events. Not all of them. Just enough that it became normal. I missed dinners. I missed conversations that would have told me who my children really were becoming. I knew their schedules better than their thoughts. At the time, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like progress. Life doesn't punish you immediately for these choices. That's what makes them dangerous. The cost is delayed. Spread thin. Easy to ignore. Years pass quietly. You don't notice how rarely you laugh together anymore. You don't notice that conversations become logistical. You don't notice that silence replaces curiosity. I told myself this was adulthood. That this was how things were supposed to be. My parents aged while I was busy. I called them when I remembered. I visited when it was convenient. I assumed they understood. I assumed there would be more time. There is always a sense, when you're young, that time is generous. That it waits for you. That it adjusts to your priorities. It does not. One day, you get a phone call you didn't expect. Or a diagnosis. Or an empty chair at a table that used to be full. And suddenly the past feels unfinished in a way you can't fix. For me, the turning point wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Almost ordinary. My wife got sick. Not suddenly. Slowly. The kind of illness that steals small things first. Energy. Patience. Ease. By the time I realized what was happening, we were already living differently. I tried to show up then. I really did. But by that point, we were strangers in some ways. We had shared a life without sharing ourselves. There were things she wanted to say, I think. There were things I wanted to say too. We danced around them, careful not to disturb what little peace remained. When she died, I felt grief. Of course I did. But beneath it was something heavier. Something harder to name. It was the understanding that there were conversations that would never happen now. That there were versions of us that would never exist. That I had waited too long to notice what really mattered. You don't just mourn the person. You mourn the life you didn't live with them. After that, the house changed. Sound behaved differently. Time stretched in uncomfortable ways. I found myself replaying small moments. Things I dismissed. Things I postponed. I remembered a night when she asked me to sit with her, just for a while. I told her I was tired. I needed to finish something. I would come later. Later never came. That's the thing about regret. It doesn't shout. It waits. As I got older, people started disappearing. Friends first. Then family. One by one, the world became smaller. Conversations grew shorter. Invitations fewer. You realize then that success doesn't sit with you in the evening. Achievements don't ask how you're feeling. Productivity doesn't hold your hand. I had done well by most standards. If you looked at my life on paper, it made sense. But paper doesn't show what was neglected. It doesn't show what was postponed into absence. I don't hate my younger self. I understand him. He was trying. He was afraid. He wanted to be enough. He just didn't know what enough really was. What I learned too late is that presence is not automatic. It is a choice you make repeatedly, often when it's inconvenient. Love is not something that survives neglect simply because it exists. Relationships don't erode from cruelty alone. They erode from delay. From assumption. From the belief that there will always be another chance. I thought being reliable was the same as being available. It isn't. I thought providing was the same as participating. It isn't. I thought time spent later could replace time missed now. It can't. There are things you cannot repair once they've passed. Not because you don't want to, but because time does not accept apologies. I see younger people now, rushing the way I did. Talking about someday. About when things slow down. About when they have more time. I don't interrupt them. I don't correct them. I know how it feels to believe that. But if I speak to you now, quietly, as someone who has reached the other side of those assumptions, this is what I would tell you. Pay attention to the moments that don't seem important. Those are the ones that become memories. Listen when someone is talking to you, not to respond, but to understand. Sit longer than necessary. Ask questions that don't lead anywhere useful. Say things sooner. Not because you're afraid of losing the chance, but because closeness requires immediacy. Don't confuse being busy with being needed. Don't confuse achievement with meaning. I am grateful for many things. I am not ungrateful for my life. But gratitude does not erase sorrow. They exist together now, side by side. I have people who care about me. I have memories that still warm me. But I also have quiet that feels permanent. I have rooms that echo. I have thoughts that come too late. When you reach this age, acceptance isn't peace. It's understanding without the ability to change the outcome. I don't have advice. I have experience. An experience is simply truth that arrived after it could help you. If this meant something to you, if any part of this sounded familiar, sit with it for a moment. You don't need to fix anything right away. Just notice. That's what I failed to do. I don't know how much time I have left. None of us ever really do. But I know this, when my days end, I won't think about what I achieved. I'll think about who I was with. And who I wasn't. That understanding came late. But it came. And this is me, at 78, finally saying what I should have lived sooner.